We're going to start with the highest graded defenseman, as we did with the forwards yesterday. Mr. Barry Ashby Trophy himself. Travis Sanheim leads the way with an A-. Charlie giving him the A, but throwing in that minus there.
I will
the
say
way he started.
Let's put that highest rated defenseman with a little asterisk.
With an highest rated defenseman.
We're going to get to another guy with a higher grade later.
Highest rated defenseman who finished the season with the team. Sanheim gets an A-. The way he started the year, it was like, holy shit, is he going to get Norris votes?
Yeah.
And around Christmas, like leading up to that break, Torts was like, listen, we got to back up his minutes. He said as much out loud.
Yeah.
This is getting out of hand. We're playing him like 26 minutes a night. We shouldn't do this to most guys, let alone someone who's never done it before.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He was, for the most part, impressive. There were dips in his play throughout the season. I wouldn't say he was incredibly consistent. But for the most part, I think he really raised the floor. Like, we've seen him have peaks and valleys, and it's like, oh, shit, he sucks. I don't remember ever thinking he sucks this year.
I thought the one point of the year where he appeared briefly to be turning back into bad Sanheim was in January. So Torts starts pulling back his minutes around the midpoint of December because I think he noticed the Sanheim was dipping. January, you look at his numbers, 2 assists in 14 games, a -8. That was when you were seeing the old Sanheim come back. I think he benefited a lot from the All-Star break. I think that gave him a chance to kind of reset. Then he was pretty good the rest of the year. It was just that he was very clearly playing hurt.
Yeah.
He got banged up pretty early in February. He then got banged up again even more in early March. March was when it got real bad. Was when he was playing through multiple things. The skating burst was gone. But to his credit,
They ran out of guys.
I thought that despite the fact that he was pretty clearly playing, my guess, somewhere in like the 70 to 80% range, he hung in there. Like, he was still pretty good given the fact that he was not himself. I thought he found a way to stay effective despite the fact that his best physical tool, his skating, was not there for like a month. He still found a way to take on a lot of minutes for a team battling for a playoff spot in the heart of a playoff race. And I think that, to me, was what pushed me over, because I thought about giving him a B+. I was like, does he deserve it? But I thought his play over the final month and a half of the year, given that he was playing through injury, given the fact that the stakes were higher and he found a way to stay effective, that pushed me into the A- range.
I think that makes sense. And like Bill said, I do think if nothing else this season, he raised the floor, because last year there were points at which you were like, ooh, who is he? Is he not good? Is he like, are we expecting too much out of him? But I don't think we ever were, really. I mean, there have been conversations going back to the early years where it was like, is he better than Ivan Provorov? Like, is he a top pair defenseman? Like, what do we actually have in Travis Sanheim? And I think this year, while it wasn't perfect, he did prove that he can, in fact, take those top pair minutes and be an effective NHL defenseman. And that, I think, is a huge, like, just piece of information that we have now.
Kelly, I think you should take a little bit of a victory lap here, because the question, as you hinted, for a few years was, well, what if Travis Sanheim is actually better than Ivan Provorov?
I did be saying
I think we now have legitimate evidence that Travis Sanheim is better than Ivan Provorov. Because Travis Sanheim was functionally the number one on the Flyers this year, which was the role that Ivan Provorov played for years. And Ivan Provorov was functionally the number 2 or number 3. I guess he was the number 1 when Werenski went down in Columbus. But like, Sanheim significantly outplayed Provorov this year. And yeah, maybe you could argue that Columbus was in a worse situation, but you know what would have made that situation better?
Travis
if Ivan
Sanheim.
Provorov would have played like a number 1 defenseman.
Yeah.
Guess where these teams finished neck and neck at the bottom of the league last year?
Yeah.
With Ivan Provorov here.
Yeah.
Without him, the team, if they win one more goddamn game, makes the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I know you can't just, oh, well, one team's good and one team, but like, we know what this defense used to look like a year ago. Remember? Like, it stunk.
I think there was always a feeling that getting rid of Provorov was going to be addition by subtraction in the room, but it ended up also being addition by subtraction on the ice.
You always said, like, they knew it was a problem, his personality versus the majority of the team, but it was like, on the ice, we don't have anybody.
Who's going
And
to
it
take
was,
those minutes?
yeah, it's like, well, you're rebuilding. Who cares?
Yeah.
That was
But-
our point.
But like, you saw it go down. It was like, actually, Travis Sanheim can. And I always thought there was like more to Ivan Provorov, and I guess I was just wrong about what his ceiling was. Many people were. But when I think about Sanheim and Provy now, it's like Sanheim at least had measurable tools. Like there were things that you like, oh, he's an amazing skater. Like so much of it with Provorov, I guess, was like intangible. Like, oh, he never misses games.
He
You know,
pushes tires up
he
the
can
mountain.
play these minutes. He never misses the games. And like he's got this IQ. And then when it was like, does he have the IQ? And when it was, oh, it might not be what we thought it was. You pulled back the layers, like, what is there?
I think, and I will say this, I think that there is an alternate universe where Ivan Provorov maybe gets drafted by another team and is developed better, and with the tools that he has, is a significantly better player today than he actually is in reality. Because I think that the tools were there. I do think his hockey IQ is very strong. He's obviously a really hard worker. He's extremely strong. He wins puck battles. He's a good passer. There's a lot of really good tools there to shape a number one defenseman. I think the worst thing that happened to Ivan Provorov in retrospect was the fact that he immediately was given the role of number one defenseman, because then he started to believe his own hype.
Yep.
And once he started to believe his own hype and started to believe that he was beyond reproach, both from the coaching staff and in the room, then it was over.
Yeah.
Because then he became functionally, and not in terms of like doing what the coach told him to do. He always did that. But he became uncoachable in the sense that he was not going to accept that there were things he actually needed to improve upon.
Yeah.
That it was all everyone else, it wasn't him. And I couldn't, like, I know I've said this before, but like I could envision a scenario where like if he was selected by like the Kings and immediately joined a room where like Drew Doughty was the guy.
Yeah, he was like, quit fucking around, kid.
And it's like there's no universe where a 19-year-old Ivan Provorov could go into that room and believe that he was better than Drew Doughty. And I think he probably would have developed better because he probably would have had a little bit more humility. But when you spend 3 years being told by everyone, and us in the media and the fan base are, I guess, partially to blame for this, like we pumped him up as, oh, he's our number one. He's a future Norris guy. I think he just started to believe it. And then when push came to shove and he was going to need to actually make tangible improvements to his game to get there, it then became, no, I'm fine. I've been the number one guy getting 25 minutes a night since I was 19 years old. It's everybody else's fault.
At 19 years old, he was tasked with like propping up one of the highest paid players on the team that the entire fan base fucking hated.
Yeah.
So like I can see how it can happen.
Thank you
And
for your service.
this does get to like a bigger picture thing about the Flyers organization. We'll see. Yeah, maybe they could have just drafted better in the Hextall years and everything since then. There's almost no way none of these guys like, oh yeah, we were wrong about everyone. Like
No, there's
the
a real
developmental
development issue.
process
Yeah.
clearly needed
Clearly had-
upgrading on top of like so many other things. We will find out, I guess, with this next wave of guys.
I guess we'll see if they've
like,
actually
if
improved
this is
it.
a thing that they've actually improved
Yeah.
because like nobody lived up to what we thought they would.
Yeah.
Maybe Sanheim now and the dude's pushing fucking 30.
I think eventually, like what Travis Konechny is right now,
Okay, yeah.
that is what I thought he was going to be. However, it took a 2-year detour of him sucking for a little bit before he got there. And maybe if you have a better developmental environment, he doesn't kind of stink in 2021 and 2022.
And to get this back to Travis Sanheim, I should have emphasized the last name. The idea that like, okay, Provorov would have been like, there's nothing I need to work on. The fact that we saw Sanheim make dramatic improvements in his game, and like we joke about he's the 2-time most improved, like
Could have been a third.
Could have been a
Could have
third.
been.
He's made improved, but the fact that he's willing to work on stuff and kind of take the coaching and be like, no, I need to be a little stronger if I'm going to play these minutes. I need to be able to do that. Well, he took the coaching and he had the best year of his career.
Yeah. We have a super chat from
Okay.
VNet Singh. Jensen Kelly, does Sanheim stay on the right D side? Seems like York and Drysdale and Sanheim and Risto are not a bad top 4. We'll get to Risto in a second, but I do believe that they think he is a long-term right side defenseman now.
Okay.
I think they know they can move him back to the left, that it's an option. He obviously did it for the bulk of his career. I get the sense that everybody there thinks he's a better right side D-man. I also don't necessarily think that Rasmus Ristolainen is part of the long-term plan anymore. So, VNet, I get your... I mean, I'm not saying... This isn't anything new.
Insider
I'm not
information.
reporting anything. Like, it's abundant.
Feels like
Like,
a
the guy
report.
can't fucking play games.
Well,
He
theoretically.
played 30 games this year.
He could play more next year.
Could he?
Maybe.
He'll play a ton of games
Analysis.
for the Maple Leafs.
Really?
Yes.
But in all honesty,
The
like,
dream.
yeah, I guess in theory those pairs could work if Drysdale takes a big step forward, but it's harder to find right side defensemen than it is to find left side defensemen. And if you have a guy in Travis Sanheim who showed this year he can be a clearly above average top 4 defenseman on the right side, I'm not going to rush to move him back to the left.
I almost want to staple him to the right. I always thought Sanheim was probably better than I gave him credit for, mostly because I trust Charlie's evaluation. But I just never really thought he was that good. It's like, all right, he's out there. He's doing the hockey, I guess.
He's doing the hockey.
I don't really see anything in him. And this year, he looked like a very good player.
He did.
I want that. So I want to keep him doing what he's doing.
Fair.
Yeah, it seems like it would be kind of silly
Yeah,
after this
like-
season to
Yeah.
make any changes, really.
Last year, he
Single
got
worst.
benched.
Yeah.
He got benched in his hometown playing over there. And this year,
Disrespectful.
he was an integral part of the defense to the point where even when he was hurt, it was like, buddy, you can't come out. Sorry. We fucking need you.
Yep.
On a playoff team almost. Like
Yeah.
on a team fighting for the playoffs up to game 82.
Yeah.
This is the best I could have hoped for from Travis Sanheim after like the last 3 years. So I need him over there.
So is it really just that mid-season dip that took it from A to A- for you?
Yeah, and then there's also the fact that, and this has been a recurring problem with Sanheim to the point where this is why if I was structuring my ideal Flyers defense, I would not have him on the top pair. I think he is a clear-cut top 4 defenseman. He's back to being in that 2-3 kind of true talent spot where I would put him ideally on a defense that I think can compete for cups. He's a guy where, because I think he's still going to be prone to the big mistake, if you look at his like expected goals for percentage, he's going to be around like 53%, which is good. You want to be over 50%. And then his actual goals for percentage, like the actual goals that happen on the ice, are always lower. That happened again this year. I just think he's a guy where I think he can certainly take the minutes. He's got all the physical ability, but I do think in an ideal world, you want to shelter him a little bit from the toughest matchups because he's always going to be prone to the big turnover, the big defensive breakdown. And you probably, like in an ideal world, you don't want him taking 60% of the shifts against Connor McDavid. Maybe he can take 20, but like you don't want him taking most of them because he's prone to those big breakdowns. And I don't think that fully went away this year.
Okay.
It is like a tough... Like, physically, nobody can skate with Connor McDavid. But he is like the one guy with the tools that you're like, well, he might be able to keep up with him.
Yeah.
Or at least, but yeah, he's also the guy
just,
who's going to, somehow hit him in the ass and bounce to McDavid in the slot. How?
And
I don't know, but it
just,
happens to him.
I picked McDavid. Like, you could say that, like, I could say Artemi Panarin.
No,
like, whoever the team superstar
Yes.
is, I don't necessarily want Sanheim taking the bulk of the shifts against him in a game.
Yeah.
I want him taking a lot of shifts because he can do it and he can do it well. I still view him as a guy who, in my ideal world, is probably my number 3.
Yeah, like
He can be a 2 if you've got a damn good 1 next to him, or like a 2 in the sense of like the Chemo Timonen, where like Pronger's the 1 and he's on one pair, Timonen is the 2 and he's on the other pair, and Timonen had the second most minutes even if he wasn't taking the absolute toughest matchups every game because Pronger was.
We all silly like the mayor.